This is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Today we're going to discuss what's going on behind the scenes with Syria, what's really happening, what to expect, and how it's going to lead to Zechariah 12 and the daughter of Babylon destruction and Jeremiah 30:11. It looks like it's coming together. Now I can't give you a written guarantee it's going to be exactly this way, but I'm going to show you what the nations are planning. Okay? And it's looking pretty grandiose. Okay, this thing in Syria is way bigger than the vast majority of people understand. Okay, some people understand it, but they don't understand the Bible prophecies with it. Okay, so you're likely not going to hear this anywhere else, and it's huge. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the live stream. PayPal is good, Patreon's good, everything's good there, and I'm going to go put a few fast posts up and make sure we got sound and picture. I'm going to jump into the live stream. We got sound and picture. Now I'm going to put a couple of quick posts up, okay? And that gives people a chance to come in. And I'm going to try to go fast today. So I would like to get these videos down to no more than an hour and a half, 90 minutes. And I'm trying. Now I get my email address up. And we'll be done with this. Okay, so all the payment processors are working for offerings. All right, being a Bible believing site, I'm going to do some praise and we'll get started. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Let's see if I brought my coffee in. I didn't. Okay, hang on a second. I'm going to go get my coffee. I left it outside. The floor is very slippery from cleaning it. And I'll be back in a shake. All right. Okay, as you know, Syria fell. Assad's in Moscow with his family. They took his cousin and they hung him in the streets. Yesterday, I think, I saw a picture of it. I didn't put it up on Telegram. I didn't want to put that up. Anarchy is breaking out in Syria. The Kurds are fighting the Turkish groups who are fighting the Kurds back and forth. Druze are agitated. In much of Syria, not the entire country, there's a lot of anarchy. Groups of different, the Assad Shiite followers and the Sunnis. It's breaking up. It's in anarchy. Okay? What they're going to do, and I believe this is true, I'm not the only one who thinks this, they're going to break Syria up into pieces. And you're already seeing this, and I'll explain. Turkey's established a large buffer zone. The whole border with Turkey and Lebanon's a buffer zone, and he wants to get the Kurds further away. And the Kurds are being protected by the Americans, and they're living where the oil is that the American bases are protecting, that the American oil companies are profiting from. Follow the money trail. Nobody attacked the American bases. Iraq is temporarily, anyway, not getting into the war. They're fortifying their border. Floods of people came into Lebanon from Syria. I mean, hordes, tons. Initially, the families of Hezbollah, when we started attacking them a couple of months ago, left Lebanon and went into Syria, tried to get into Iraq. They couldn't get into Iraq. They stayed in Syria. Now they're going to come back to Lebanon. Okay, now this is going to be very deep study, not so much deep in Bible prophecy, but deep when you have to understand what's going on. And I'm going fast, so you could just go and replay it if you want, okay? So anarchy in Syria. The rebels have not established order. There's looting. It's a mess, okay? The rebels say they're in control, but talk is cheap. What are they really controlling? So a piece of Syria has already basically been divided, given to Turkey, or Turkey grabbed it. Turkey's not yet joining BRICS, by the way. Somebody said they would veto it, or would veto it or something. So Turkey's path to BRICS is not looking so good, okay? Putin's, a few days ago, stopped bombing the rebels. He said his intention was to slow them down. Why would he want to slow them down? Well, hoping Assad would do something. Now, about 5 months ago, the Iranians told Bashar Assad that there's something up in Idlib and you better deal with it, and he didn't deal with it. Okay? This thing with all these rebels, which are basically Al-Qaeda and ISIS, or Daesh, goes back about a year. I mean, let's get real. All of a sudden, they didn't just, when Hezbollah got severely beaten down, well, we had the ceasefire, and that stopped Hezbollah, basically. So they didn't just wake up in the morning and say, hey, today's the day we're going to conquer Syria. They were waiting. This thing was cooking for about a year. They were assembling. A lot of these soldiers are running around with Turkish lira. What currency are they using in Syria now? What's going on with the banks? Who's accepting Syrian passports? A list of countries, must be 10 or 12, said they're no longer accepting Syrian refugees escaping, seeking political asylum. They're no longer taking them. Mostly Europe. So maybe America did too. I'm not sure. I put it on my Telegram. You could look at the list. So, the Syria's in anarchy. Okay? The guy that's running Syria, or so he says he's running it as a rebel leader, has a $10 million bounty on his head from America. He's tied to, 9/11 and other things. They can't stand this guy, yet he's there. CNN interviewed him, and They basically painted a new coat of paint on this guy to make him look different. He's not different. Okay? The rebels came up with a list. This is public, of people that were in Assad's regime, his government, his family, etc., that they intend to arrest? No. Kill? No. They said torture. They want to torture them. The guy they hung, Assad's cousin, wasn't hung in an official, like an old cowboy movie where, there's a court and a hearing and he's sentenced and then they tie his hands up and they walk him to a platform and they put a bag over his head and a noose and then the trap door opens and he's gone. That didn't happen. They took him and they brutally hung him. It was either a crane or a street lamp. The picture wasn't that, didn't zoom in correctly. I couldn't tell what it was. In the street. It was a lynching. Okay? Anarchy. Key word, anarchy. Okay? Now, America, in the last few days, I think this goes back 4 or 5 days, attacked 75 or more places in Syria where there were weapons storage and strategic weapons from Assad's army. They were using B-52s, several. You don't need B-52s to bomb these places unless they're underground. Israel can handle a 1-ton or a 2,000-pound bunker buster bomb. But Assad's fortifications were pretty deep, so they were probably upping it to 5,000-pound bombs or greater. So you got to understand the magnitude of what America did. 75 strikes or more. It could be up to 100. I don't know. And I don't know if they ever completely stopped doing the strikes. They might be doing onesies and twosies. Then after that, Israel took over. And we hit 300 sites in Syria, and that number is still climbing. Okay? We're not finished. F-16s are taking off like crazy. They're flying in, dropping their payload, coming back, refueling, grab a cup of coffee, send a few text messages, check the plane, refuel, rearm, go back again. We've hit everything. We've hit command centers, intelligence centers, communication centers, bunkers, weapons storage, missile sites. Their radars are gone. Okay, we're hitting their tanks. We're blowing up their aircraft, helicopters, planes, jets. And we've taken out some of their Navy ships, and we're still continuing. We haven't hit the Russian base. Okay. You got it? The remnants of the Syrian army are gone. The rebels have said they're providing amnesty to everybody in the Syrian army that was a conscript, in other words, a draftee. So by Syrian law under Assad, they had to go in the military. They had no choice, so they'd go to jail. So they have given them amnesty because these people had no choice. And these are the ones that were defecting like crazy and abandoning their uniforms and running away and everything. It's safe to say that about 400 sites have been hit by now. Okay? There's not much of anything left of the Syrian army. Now, has America carved a piece of Syria out for itself? Yes, that's what the bases are there for. They're where the oil is, and the American oil companies are benefiting and profiting from this oil. America carved out a piece of Syria a long time ago. Now Turkey carved out a piece of Syria, but Turkey's on a civil war, well, a genocide campaign against the Kurds. So what's going to happen is various pieces of Syria are going to have to be dedicated to different groups of people. The Kurds are going to need a place away from Turkey, probably. The Druze need a place. They're very agitated. They're fighting one clique or cult of Muslims against another. They haven't started on the Christians yet, but they'll have to do something for them. Okay? There's Alawites, there's Sunnis, there's Shiite, there's radical Shiite, radical Sunnis. It's all over the place. It's a mess. They're not, the rebels are light years away from being able to calm this down, kids. Okay? So far we got Turkey grabbing a piece of Syria, America grabbing a piece of Syria, the valuable part, right? We have America and Israel destroying any remnant of the Syrian army. It's still ongoing, by the way. Okay, but I would say they really dented it. There was supposedly a cloud of, they call it chemicals in Damascus, I think it was, or near Damascus, that was getting people sick. And they think that we hit a chemical warehouse or chemical weapons storage facility, and some of it got blown up in the air and diluted. It wasn't killing the people that I know of, but making them sick. Or it could have been another chemical that had nothing to do with chemical weapons. It could have been some toxic solvents, or I don't know what, you know. It'll come out what it was. Russia built chemical weapon places in Syria with Assad, and he used chemical weapons on his civilians. Turkey is now talking about bringing back he opened his border up, letting millions of Syrians that escaped Syria to his refugee camps in Turkey. He's sending them back to Syria. They want to go back to Syria where it's their home. Where are you going to put them? I don't know yet. What has Israel done? Well, this is really telltale. Israel took back initially the Syrian side of Mount Hermon, which is a high mountain. It's not quite 10,000 feet up at the top, but it's over 9,000, maybe 9,800 feet. It's up there. And it's a great observation post. And the Syrians abandoned it, so we moved in with our soldiers. It's now ours. And the Syrian army left the eastern side of the Golan Heights that belonged to Syria. They left. Netanyahu said, look, the thing that goes back into the 1970s where we divided the land and, you know, ceasefire, and these are the embarkation lines and dividing lines and all that. He says that was with the nation of Syria, and that's no longer applicable because there is no nation of Syria. And is Netanyahu right? He's right. A treaty was made and honored with another government. That government is not there anymore. So Netanyahu's right. Okay? They didn't make a treaty with Israel didn't make a treaty with the rebels. Okay? So we took the Golan Heights side of the Syrian side back, and we said we have a buffer zone. Then we went further to Kenatra, places like that. And now we get reports that convoys of tanks yesterday, convoys, that's streams of tanks. 15 tanks is not a convoy, 25 maybe, 75, 100, that's a convoy, are going deep in. We're about 12 miles outside of Damascus. 12 miles outside of Damascus. No resistance from the rebels. Zero. Curious, isn't it? The rebels were saying publicly that the people should be patient. They're going to liberate Jerusalem and the Al-Asmas, the Dome of the Rock, and the Palestinians. They might have put a new paint job on, but it's still the same satanic killing machine, Al-Qaeda and ISIS. I have no information if we're going to stop at Damascus. We're not getting any resistance. If we get resistance, it's very simple. They get on the Motorola and they say coordinates, airstrike. 2 or 4 F-16s or F-15s are there in how long? Oh, depending where, maybe with afterburners, maybe 30 seconds, 60, 90 seconds without. 2 minutes is a max, probably. So, how are you going to defeat our tanks when they have a rebel army with no Air Force, no Navy, no serious missiles, using pickup trucks with artillery and 50 cal and 20 millimeter guns mounted on it? What is that going to do to a tank? It's going to not do much. We got reactive body armor and we have radar on the tanks that shoots out little missiles to take down the projectile, including artillery and mortar shells. And we have others that the things, it has a few guns on it, like, I don't know, it's like a shotgun that shoots very hard pellets. But it's not going to shoot 9 or 12 pellets. It's going to create a big cloud of pellets. And it's radar controlled, so as the missile gets close to the tank, these shotguns fire and it shreds the incoming projectile. And even if it gets in, then it has to hit the reactive body armor. I seriously doubt they have anything sophisticated enough to get through the reactive, to get past our radar systems on the tanks and then get through the reactive body armor, and then they have to get through our regular steel armor. Not easy. Tanks usually have 1 or 2 machine guns. One gun is operated remote control with cameras from inside the tank. And we have an artillery piece on the tank that can fire quite rapidly. And it carries a good amount of shells. But you have to understand, if we're 30, 40 miles into Syria, the time for the F-16s and the F-15s to get there, and the F-35s, but we don't need those now, is seconds. Plus our artillery. We have artillery that's very accurate, radar controlled, I expect, that can rain shells down on the rebels. What are the rebels going to do? Come with AK-47s and go and ping the tanks and ruin the paint job? What are you going to do? Come with their pickup trucks with some kind of gun or artillery piece on it? It's child's play. Pickup trucks are not anywhere near as maneuverable in rough terrain as a tank with treads, even a 4x4. They're busy looting, they're busy, the rebels making press announcements, changing the flag, blowing smoke at the people in Syria about how everybody's going to be free and how great it is. How are you going to be free when they're going to invoke severe Sharia law, which they said they would do? Women may have to go out of the house accompanied by a man with long sleeves, a hijab down to the ankles, and some kind of covering on the head that may leave their face open, or it may just leave a slit for their eyes in the heat of the summer. Nice. That's free. They'll get rid of alcohol. They'll get rid of tobacco. They'll get rid of television. They'll get rid of movies. They'll get rid of the internet to some extent anyway. Come on. This is free. Yeah, you're free to serve them and follow Islamic doctrine as they interpret it. Islamic doctrine is all busted up all over the place. You got the Alawites. You got the Druze. You've got the Shiites in various flavors and the Sunnis in various flavors. It's a mess. It's like imagine American denomination churches armed to the teeth having a fight over pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib rapture with guns. That's what you got. Okay? Or maybe, fighting over other doctrines, It's nuts, okay? Now, what Israel is doing could be more ominous than one could imagine. Coincidentally, Netanyahu has to start giving verbal testimony in court today on his 3 criminal cases that have been active for years, and he tried postponing it and he didn't postpone it. Now, is it likely because all the tanks are in Syria that the attorney will appear in the court and say Netanyahu's in urgent matters of state right now, we have tanks and this and that, and he's completely unable at the risk of the security of the country, he can't come? I think we'll see that. It's too early in the morning to know. Another coincidence. All right, let me look at the live stream and see if I got to throw the garbage out. Hang on. I don't think we'll see Netanyahu appear in court today. I might be wrong. I don't know. We'll know soon. Okay? What Israel's doing is carving out a hunk of land. And this hunk of land is probably, trying to think of the distance. What I'm seeing is it's going to be extended from the Golan Heights, from the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, at least 15 or 30 miles. The Syrian side of Golan Heights is about 8 miles. And to get a decent buffer zone, we need 25 miles. So we could count the Syrian side of the Golan Heights as the buffer zone, but I think Netanyahu is going to go 25 miles past the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. Now, what will that accomplish? That means shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons are out of range to hit Israel. Okay? Artillery is out of range. The most artillery is really going to go is 25 miles. Most artillery is usually set to go 15, 17, 18 miles. That's it. Okay? Syrian tanks are being blown up. I don't know if we got them all because he had 2,700, so it says. So we might still be working another 2 or 3 days there blowing stuff up, but it's an unprecedented amount of bombing. The Syrian people are in awe over the amount of bombings we're doing. We're blowing whole bases up. Whole Syrian Arab army bases are being destroyed. The whole base. Just wiping out the base. You gotta listen to me. There's a reason for this. And it's way deeper than we don't want the rebels to get the weapons. That's true. That's not a lie. But the other reasons aren't being revealed. Okay? So Israel's going to carve out a nice piece of land that's going to go into Syria where it's going to be very hard. The Katyusha rockets and the junkie rockets, and most of them, they build in basements, they're going to go, 7, 8 miles, maybe 12 or 18 miles. Yeah. They don't go very, most of the junkie things they put, that's 6, 7, 8, 9 miles or something. That's it. And they're not aimable, so they're not going to work against us. So they're not going to be raining down missiles in Israel. Okay. Now, on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, Syrian people live. Just like on the Israeli side, Israeli people live. there's not much going on up there when you drive around there. There's little small, I don't know what you want to call it, a village, a town, not even, you know. It's mostly rural. They don't have a lot of apartments and little villages. The people are on rural land. So, in the little community center, you can call it, you'd find maybe some medical office, maybe a post office, 2 or 3 little grocery stores. I say little grocery stores, maybe medium size here and there. Maybe a bank branch here and there, ATM machine, gas station. Not much of anything. Okay? Not much. Got a lot of kibbutzes, lots of mashavs and things like that up there that people live on, and they have land and they work the land, and that's generally what it's like up there. There is a large community there that is probably like a little city. I've never been in it, but it's there. Okay. So the buffer zone stops the rebels from pushing in to the Golan Heights. The fear would be they put on civilian clothes and they go into the Syrian side of the Golan Heights and they come in with AK-47s and pickup trucks with guns on them, and they say, you don't live here anymore. You know, we do. And the Al-Qaeda and Daesh or ISIS soldiers, the rebels, move into the houses, and then they start bringing weapons into the houses, just like Hezbollah did in Lebanon. That would be their move. But Israel stopped that already. But the Syrian civilians living in the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, we could call it, it's Israel, but are still there. Now, let's tie this to Gaza. The right-wing people in Israel want the people out of Gaza. They want the civilians out of Gaza. Let's weigh this. To fix Gaza, to repair it with humanitarian conditions, is probably 5 years and hundreds of billions of dollars. Not 50 billion, not 100, maybe 500 billion, okay? The damage we did to southern Lebanon was $5 billion. The damage we did to Gaza is way the heck more. Hospitals destroyed, schools, mosques, malls, stores, apartments, private residences, streets, roads, water lines. You got the idea? Sewage, everything's been destroyed there. Who's going to pay to rebuild Gaza? Certainly Israel won't pay. You'd have to put a gun in their mouths to get them to. We wouldn't pay for that. Why should we pay? It's considered by the world not our land. So it's stupid. Why should we pay to repair Ukraine too? You know, it's rather stupid. So who's going to come up with all that money to rebuild Gaza? I think you'd be in multiple billions of dollars just getting the rubbish out of there. Or at least $1 billion. That doesn't help them that much. The roads are still broken. How do you ride around in cars? How do you use buses? And, you know, come on, it's a mess. People drink a bottled water. They're getting humanitarian aid to eat. They're cooking in the streets. They have a shortage of fuel for fires to cook. They're trying to get humanitarian aid cooking gas. It's a mess. What do they do? Well, Moshe Feiglin, a good politician who Netanyahu ran out of politics, said that the best thing and the cheapest thing to do is to screen them. And if any of them want to take a loyalty oath to Israel, we give them a residency in Gaza, and they got 5 years before they become a permanent resident or a citizen or whatever he proposed. and they're watched very carefully. If they start popping up at anti-Israel meetings, radical mosques, you know, they're finished and they go. The rest of them, you deport them and you give them a basket of cash. To do that, you need to find a country that's going to take them in. That means you have to find a country that's very stupid, very desperate for money, and don't care about anything, and are probably very corrupt. So the basic plan is you give these people a plane ticket, or you'd probably have to put them on buses, take them to an airport under guard, watch them walk on the plane, and when they get on the plane, you probably hand them some money. And then they go to the country and they get off the plane, or maybe you have an Israeli representative in the country, this is more likely. When they get off the plane, they get processed and they're given a temporary ID in the country. Well, I think they want them to have permanent residency, so they give them a permanent residency, and then they hand them the cash in the form of a check, making arrangements with banks in the country to honor the check, and they present their new ID card with the check, and they open a bank account, and now they got the money. Okay? You can't give them cash, they'll start killing each other to get the money. When I was a young guy, I was a deputy sheriff, and I wasn't a corrections officer, I was a deputy sheriff. And I would work in the jail, and we had Border Patrol would pick up immigrants, illegal immigrants from Mexico that would come in to work, and they would bring them to our jail. And we would put them in barracks. Now, these were not criminals. So me and other deputies used to interact with them differently than we would the criminals. They were criminals technically, but they weren't. You know, they were guys with families, maybe no family, and they came up here to work in agriculture, and they wanted to earn a living, and they didn't want to go break into houses and rape people and hit people over the head and rob them. None of that. So we treated them differently. They weren't in gangs, and there weren't coyotes running them in or anything like that. So previously to my time on the job there, the Border Patrol used to shave their heads. So they were very easy to pick up for a month or two, because they'd go back to Mexico, turn around, and come right back in. So they started shaving their heads, and the courts stopped that. Because then they just had to run around, and when they saw a guy that looked Mexican, spoke Spanish, and had a shaved head, well, that was it. They knew who he was. So we used to have a joke. We used to have to take everything away from them. Well, like with prisoners, when you book them, you take an envelope and you put all their possessions in the envelope. You know, a pen, maybe a handkerchief, a pack of cigarettes. You might let them keep that though. A ring, a necklace, a cross, anything, any jewelry. I don't know, important papers. You take their wallet with their ID and everything and put it in an envelope, and you would write an inventory on the envelope and seal it up. And we took their watches, because you could get killed in a jail for your watch. And we used to have a joke: if you didn't take the watches away from them, you'd wake up in the morning and there'd be a lot of dead Mexican, and there'd be one guy wearing watches up and down his arms, you know. So anyway, I'm digressing. So back to the Palestinians. So the right wing in Israel wants the Palestinians out, and they want the Israelis to resettle Gaza. So the plan would be take them to some country, give them money. I heard figures as high as $50,000 per family, but I don't think it'll be that high. And that would put a bunch of cash into the government, maybe an African country or some other destitute country. It would put a bunch of cash into circulation, and that would, you know, bootstrap the country, and hopefully that new stores would open, industry. I don't know. It doesn't sound like a great idea. And they never were able to really find a country that agreed to it. And if they did agree to it, the Muslims might threaten the leaders of the country that we're going to kill you because you're cooperating with the Zionists to displace Palestinians from their land. So we're going to come kill you, we'll kill your families, we'll kill your ministers, you know, we're good at this. You'll have car bombs, you'll have suicide bombs, you'll have sniping, you'll have fires, you know. So I don't think it's viable. So now comes a possibility that Israel can carve out a nice piece of land, okay, in Syria. The Palestinians that don't want to take an oath to Israel, that we know are bad, which is 95% of them, but anyway, they'll take most of them, and they'll put them on buses and drive them into this place where we will build tent cities like we did in Gaza, maybe take down the tents and reassemble them over there. And it would be in stages. You can't take 2 million people in 1 month. But we would start, like we move them, leave North Gaza, go to Central Gaza, go to South Gaza, go to North, you know. We would just say, hey, you got no place to live, now you got to get out of here. If you don't leave, we're going to consider you Hamas. Then we have to screen everybody and eliminate as much of Hamas as we possibly can. They would be left in Syria without civilians, without human shields, with no more humanitarian aid. Got it? So then Israel would be free to practice war, which means no more humanitarian aid, no more water, no cell phones, no sewage, no electricity, and wait. That's it. Well, thousands of them would manage to slip out and go, but nobody would have weapons, because when they get on the bus, they're going to get metal detectors and searched, and they're not going to get away with anything. I mean, they might get a knife. We wouldn't let them on the bus with a knife or a club, but those items can be got later on. So they would try to bring in explosive material, firearms, things like that, hand grenades, whatever, right? That wouldn't get on the bus. Then it wouldn't get into the it wouldn't get into their refugee camp inside Syria, which would have fences around it, probably barbed wire with sensors, cameras, watchtowers with armed Israeli soldiers. There would probably be a few tanks around, Humvees with mounted 30 caliber machine guns. They would be watched, so there would probably be multi-layer fences with probably barbed wire, and there might be 3 layers of fences they'd have to get through. I don't know exactly how they would do it. We don't know yet. And there would be tents, and they'd probably have wood floors, and we'd probably try to figure out a way to run generators and get water in there, and there would be communal toilets, communal showers, and there would have to be provisions made to feed them somehow. I don't know how or who would pay for it. And we would just bring them out. Now, they don't present much of a threat to us because they have no guns. They don't even have pistols. So they could storm our tanks, and what good would that do? It's just suicide, It wouldn't work. They wouldn't get anywhere. So I don't know exactly how it would work because it's not done yet, and Israel may not know exactly how it would work. And then Biden may want to change things about how it's set up, but it looks like this is a move they might try to make. They're not going to leave Hamas in control of Gaza any more than the Allies would have left the Nazi Party in control of Germany. It's stupid, okay? So that's going to require a rather large strip of land, which it seems that we're taking. The tanks moving in are going to be followed by more equipment as time rolls on and soldiers. Tanks are a very, very dangerous weapon when you have no aircraft, no surface to surface accurate missiles, no this, no that. What are they going to do against the tank? They could try and they'll just get slaughtered by our aircraft. Apache helicopters, F-35s, F-16s, F-15s. Our artillery will be set up. Not much they can do. They would just get mowed down. Okay? Now they're showing their colors publicly, saying we're going to torture this list of people. How does that play in the public? And all the anarchy that's going on there, I think that the rebels took over all the media in Syria. Now, they may have killed the internet, I don't know. But it's not getting out in a big way what's really going on over there. The media is controlled by the rebels completely, so it's not coming in the media. The pictures and videos I'm seeing from Arab people that probably post on social media is pretty bad. Now, how are they getting it up on social media if there's no internet? Well, there probably is some internet, maybe satellite internet, or I don't know. So that solves the problem with the Palestinians. Then if they're removed, there's no worries about Hamas being left in charge. That becomes a comical matter. We just cut off all the humanitarian aid to Gaza, the water, the cell phones, the electric, the sewage, the food, and wait. How long you have to wait, I don't know, but a month or two maybe, depending how much food they got stored. But without the water, maybe you gotta wait 2 weeks. They got bottled water. They're not gonna be taking showers. I mean, they're gonna be pretty miserable. They see no future. And that's why they're currently negotiating a ceasefire with the hostage return. So we just move them out. It would be a massive undertaking to build the tent city for that many people, but it's cheaper and better for Israel to do that. And we might get help from other countries, maybe, maybe not. But it's cheaper to do that than it is to continue fighting these wars. These bombs and iron domes are expensive. When the iron dome goes off, it shoots 2 missiles. It's $100,000 to throw. So, you know, it makes more sense to just put up the tent city and make refugee camps. We have those. We're experienced in how to do that. We did it in Gaza. We'll do it again. And they're living in a tent city just now in Syria, not in Gaza. Now, they would also serve to be of some value to us because that would be another problem an attacking army would have with those people. But the other side of that is if there was an attacking army in Syria that liberated these people, they could enlist them in their militia or military force to attack Israel. So it goes both ways. But they're already inside Gaza, so we're probably better off. And this is not necessarily what's going to happen, but this appears to be the plan. Now, who else is going to get a piece of Syria? Well, now we have to talk about Russia. The rebels have not destroyed the Russian Navy base in Latakia nor their air base. Okay, now Russia did bomb them repeatedly in the early days of the war, and they're probably afraid Russia will come back and bomb their encampments, where they have a large number of troops grouped together, like a little makeshift base or something like that. And they don't want to take the losses. I'm hearing a siren in the distance. Let me see the red alerts, what's going on, what's being hit. It's not right near me, it could be 15 miles. It's definitely air raid siren. There's some kind of an attack in the Golan, probably. Let's see if I can pick it up yet on red alert. I don't know if you could hear it, it's rather faint. Why am I not seeing a red alert for this? The sirens don't sound anything like police or ambulance or fire. Why is it not up on red alert? I can't understand. Maybe it's something else. I heard explosions from Syria last night. They come through faint, but I did hear them. Let's see if we're getting a red alert on this yet. No, I don't think we had any red alert. I heard it, but I didn't see a red alert. I don't know what happened. Confusing. Maybe since it was so faint and in the distance, I was hearing something different. That it sounded like it. It could have been a vehicle siren. I don't think so, though. It stopped. Let's see if we can find anything. No. All right. So Russia. Now, you got to understand what we saw in Syria could be called the BRICS War. BRICS. And this goes back to October 7th when Netanyahu went to visit Biden. All of a sudden, Biden never wanted him there, and all of a sudden, Biden says, yeah, come, and then September 23rd he comes. Israel's getting warnings about the October 7th attack before it happened. He ignores it. It happens. All of our guards and defenses were down, and the horrible catastrophe occurred. And I think it was likely allowed to happen. And I think it was choreographed with Biden. That's my opinion only. And Netanyahu's been resisting an independent investigation of this, and the Supreme Court is very ticked off about that. Okay? And they're not letting them get away with that. So, I told you it was all about Iran, and it is. But now it's also about Iran and Russia, and it is. The axis of evil is as follows. Iran, Iraq, it was Syria, Lebanon, Hezbollah, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen. That was their axis of evil, and they're putting sufficient pressure on the other oil-producing countries to get them under the influence of Iran and also Russia and BRICS. So a few months ago, the Saudis said, I'm not trading oil in dollars or euros anymore. The UAE basically went along with that. And the UAE is in BRICS, Saudi not yet. The other countries are resisting. Remember, case in point, they're not taking euros for oil either. So Europe will be heavily affected. Trump is making it very public that he intends to put 100% tariff on any country that goes into BRICS and starts working without the US dollar. He could care less if you join BRICS and you use the US dollar. They're also not going to accept the euro. Now, uh, Turkey's not in the EU. Turkey's in NATO, and Turkey uses the Turkish lira, not the euro or the US dollar. So they were going to let Turkey in, and they may still let Turkey in, but somebody opposed it. So Turkey looks like they're not in. It only takes one BRICS member to say no. They got about 27 members now. If they were successful or get successful in what they're doing, it will devastate the US dollar and most likely the euro. It will push the countries into poverty of about the third world level. And that would cause anarchy and rebellion in these countries, which may come to pass. And I'm talking about all of Europe and all of America. Now, other countries like Central South America and Africa and stuff, they'll probably go along with BRICS. And Trump will put these sanctions on these countries, and they don't want that. So they, as I've told you many times, BRICS was trying to influence the Middle East oil countries using this axis of evil and Iran, with Russia in the background, way back in the background, and convince them to come over. Now, the Houthis attacked the Aramco oil field in Saudi Arabia, the largest one they have, on 2 different occasions, damaging it, causing shutdowns for, in one case 3 or 4 days, another case maybe 7 or 10 days. They were doing light attacks. So Saudi Arabia caved in. No dollars or euros for my oil in the UAE, who's in BRICS, and they would continue putting pressure on Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and stop all this oil from moving in dollars or euros, causing the dollar and the euro to weaken drastically. Now, the other big players, the big oil sellers in BRICS is predominantly Russia and Iran, plus natural gas. UAE is in there, but not that big a deal. The UAE blows with the wind, okay? If America gets strong again and tells UAE to cut it out, then, they will. They go where Saudi Arabia goes. The 2 of them work together. The UAE is not a very dangerous military power at all. Okay? So, to keep BRICS going, Iran and Russia need to be in there selling their oil and natural gas, not for dollars or euros. China and India are consumers of natural gas and oil in a very huge way. And they look forward to this because they don't have to listen to the United States and their sanction threats anymore. So China and India are, and North Korea too, but they're not very big, are relying on BRICS to get a smooth, steady flow of oil and break the back of America. So by knocking out the axis of evil in the Middle East, which is not yet complete, the Houthis in Yemen are alive and well. The militants backed by Iran in Iraq and the Iraq Regular Army is alive and well. And the Iranian army is alive and well. They have no missile launch capability because the radars are taken out by Israel weeks ago, and they have no radar or systems to protect them from air attacks or missile attacks or drone attacks. And Iran has not much of anything you can call a modern navy, and they have nothing in terms of modern aircraft to speak of. So Iran is vulnerable, but with the axis of evil in place, it wasn't that vulnerable because it could create havoc. They threatened to attack the oil refineries of many of the Middle Eastern oil-producing countries. Iran did. That would cause oil prices to go. People were saying up to $500 or even $800 a barrel. It probably would go to 200, maybe 300. In any event, it would break the back of America and Europe. People wouldn't be able to go to work. How many people in America could go to work and they spend, let's say they burn 4 or 5 gallons a day, let's say 5 gallons a day with their pickups and their SUVs and stuff like that going back and forth to work, right? So instead of paying $3 a gallon, they're paying $15 a gallon. They're spending $75 a day. Say $400 a week, $1,600 a month to go to work. Well, they'd have to carpool and share the expenses. It could be worked out, but it would stop a lot of people from going to the movies, buying new clothes for their kids and themselves. It would stop them from eating out, probably stop them from going to the dry cleaners. Trips to the beauty parlor and the barber would probably diminish. Vacations would drop off. People would probably fall more behind on their bill payments. The price of cars that are SUVs and pickup trucks and cars with big engines would go off a cliff. It would go. So people are making payments on a $40,000 truck that gets 12 miles to a gallon. Sorry, the internet clicked out. These people will start defaulting on their trucks because they don't want to keep making payments on a junker. That's, they owe $29,000 on a car worth $10,000 and they're chugging out $1,500 a month for gas, or $1,000 a month for gas, or $2,000 a month for gas. They can't do it, so they're going to go try to find some small car that's going to get 23, 25, or even 30 miles a gallon. Many years ago, I bought a Volkswagen Rabbit diesel, and it used to get high 30s a gallon on diesel. 36, 38 miles a gallon. It has stick shift, easy. So they go out and find a car that gets something like that, right? Then going to work and carpooling becomes palatable. People in America don't have room in their budget to have the price of fuel go up like that. Plus, all the goods in the store, the bread, the cereal, the milk, the everything, the toilet paper, all goes up in price because the price of fuel, diesel fuel for trains goes up. For trucks goes up. Everything moves on trucks. For ships it goes up. For aircraft it goes up. Airplane tickets would be ridiculous. So when people have to keep spending all this money on fuel and consumer goods go up that they need milk, they need bread, they need meat, they need this, they need corn, they need asparagus and bananas, it's going to kill them. Europe too. It'll wreck the economies. Plus home heating oil. Oh, what are you going to do about that? I mean, people are starting to get in the winters up in the Northeast or the North in general of America, and they start getting utility bills of $1,200 a month. What are they going to do? Walk around in the house with a down jacket, a sweater, a wool hat. By the way, if you ever want to buy a wool hat, a watch cap, or a beanie, I bought several over many years, and when I was a kid, we used to get the war surplus kind, I think. They were all wool. They were like, it's a Navy watch cap, I think they call it. And they were never that good. I used to wear them in very cold weather, like, 0, 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and I'd pull them over my ears. And I used to have to walk to high school. I think it was more than half a mile each way, I think, or a half a mile each way. Get very, very cold. Toes would get numb, fingers would get numb, ears would get numb. Used to go into the school, they kept it nice and warm. My ears used to hurt when they thawed out. You know, it was that cold. And I had the wool hat pulled over. It never worked that good. I've always wondered if the actual issue hat to the Navy sailors is better than what you could buy, because maybe I never had a real surplus Navy hat. I don't know. So I tried various kinds of hats over the years. I tried them out of cashmere wool, which is very gentle and lightweight, and it the potential for it to insulate from the cold in the wool is minimal. It's junk. Then I tried merino wool. That's usually thin. Does it keep you warm? It does. Does it stop the wind? It does. It's tight knit. It works pretty good. Then I went to the Carhartt hats, and they're cheap. I mean, they're synthetic. They're not expensive at all. Maybe under $20. You know, Amazon sells them. And, they come with a large margin when you turn up the bottom. You know, on a regular hat, you maybe turn it up this much, or if you're going to do your ears, you pull it down. On this thing, when I turn it up, I get, 3-4 inches. I get at least 3 inches, maybe more. And that double insulated, this thing works. This thing's warm, it cuts the wind. This thing really works. So anyway, if you're looking for something, look into the Carhartt one, Carhatt. They make good work clothes, and it's pretty darn good. I'll tell you, I'm impressed with cheapness. So back to what's going on. So will Israel push into Damascus under the guise of restoring order in Damascus and kind of give the rebels a boot? This could happen. I'm not seeing it. It could happen. Now that they got Assad out and America and Israel together destroyed the military left behinds of the Arab Syrian army that Bashar Assad in Syria had, not Iraq. They don't need the rebels anymore. What good are they? They're just a problem. They're trying to build the Levant, the Caliphate. Turkey doesn't want that. America doesn't want that. Russia doesn't want that. Iran doesn't want that. Israel doesn't want. Who the heck wants that? Nobody. So they might, we're not going to do it by ourselves, but we might run them out in the name of restoring order to Syria, and then creating a puppet government that serves the purposes of Israel, America, the UK, Turkey, NATO, whatever. Now, what about Russia? Russia's got a pretty decent threat value. They could keep that Latakia Navy base and that air base with the rebels, because Putin's approach to them is going to be, I'll drop 2,500 bombs on you, and then we'll negotiate again. If they don't do it. If you damage my base, I'll kill thousands of your soldiers. And he will. Nobody's revealing how many soldiers these rebels have. Isn't that curious? I would say they got to have 30 or 50,000. What if they have maybe 30,000? I don't know. What if they have 180,000? I don't know what they got. I don't know. I can't get any data on it. Nobody's got any data. Isn't that mysterious? So maybe America played them for chumps and had them come in thinking Assad would probably fight back, not expecting Assad to cave like that. How could you predict that? It'd be ridiculous. You can't. So they figure, let the rebels slug it out and take the losses and weaken Assad, and we could always help them and that kind of thing. And we were in the very early stages. America was helping them. So Israel too, a little bit. So now they're just a waste of time. What do we need them there for? They're just going to make problems. They'll seat in Syria and they'll start harassing the neighboring oil-producing countries because they need oil. They need money. They don't need oil. They need money. So they could throw the Americans out of Syria and take that oil and start, making, deals with the oil companies from different countries to come over there and, run the oil, and we'll have, split profits with you or something like that, thinking there won't be sanctions on them. So America could have stabbed them in the back and just used them, and now they're of no value. So the entire Syrian army weapons are destroyed and will be destroyed. Mostly gone, but the bases are going, everything they got is going. They'll eventually finish off the jeeps, everything. The walkie-talkies, the pistols, they'll get everything. Okay? And the rebels are not able to contain or control the country. All right? And they may not have a big force. They can't handle it. Maybe they got 30 or 50,000 soldiers, but Assad had 300,000. You need to have a lot. Plus, Assad might have had 15, 20,000 police. He ran a navy. He ran an air force. He ran missile factories, weapons factories. Stuff was being made inside Syria. All that's over with. And Iran's not funding the rebels. Neither is Russia. But who the heck is funding them? They're going to collapse. You got it? They haven't hit the Russian bases. They're afraid of Putin. And what Putin is likely going to want is he's going to want to keep that Latakia base, the air base, and the Navy base. So he has his Navy base on the Mediterranean backed up with an air base on the Mediterranean. And that's what Putin's going to bargain for. And I'll be right back in a minute. Now, to break up the axis of evil, which includes Iran and Russia, this air base, the Khomeini air base by Latakia and the Navy base, has to go. This air base was used to fly weapons into Syria, which were for Syria and given to Hezbollah to bring into Lebanon. So Israel's not happy with Russia. So Russia's trying to negotiate with the rebels. And they're going to want not just the air bases, they're going to want a few miles of land around the air bases. Okay? I would guess they're going to want at least 10, maybe more. I don't know how this will play out. The rebels are afraid of Russia because Russia effectively bombed them quite a lot. Russia has long-range bombers. If he needs to, he could launch them from Russia fly over Syria and just day and night bomb the rebels. He wouldn't do that. He would fly the planes to Iran and then refuel and then take off from Iran. And it would be a short flight into Syria. It wouldn't involve a lot of complications. And he could just keep going back and forth and bombing the rebels, and that's going to create more and more anarchy. Now, this might happen. They may not give him this base. They may not give him what he wants. Because if they do, he's going to try to rebuild and retake Syria, get rid of the rebels. He don't want them either. They killed Russian soldiers, attacked Russians, drove Russians out of bases in Syria. Putin's got an axe to grind with him. But he needs that base on the Mediterranean for his ships in a war with NATO. So NATO doesn't want this to happen, which means America doesn't want it to happen, which means Israel doesn't want it to happen. So what will likely occur? One way or another, Putin meeting with Iran, they're talking, is going to try to take back Syria. Unless Putin is given the area around the Khomeini Air Base and the Navy base, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of knocking out Syria, because then Iran can go to work with Russia inside Syria. So the rebels have to be pretty stupid to go for that. But they're going to want to hang on to the country they just got at any price, so they may pay that price. I don't know which way this is going to blow. We got to watch and see how it develops. In the interim, while they're negotiating, somebody could start blowing these bases up and making it look like the rebels did it. That's called a false flag. It could happen. Well, the rebels may not like the way the negotiations are going with Putin and do it themselves, or I don't know what. They may try to occupy the bases, which would be suicide. The rebels may come to the conclusion that Putin can't do much. He's too buried in Ukraine, and America may tell the rebels not to worry about it. America would greatly prefer to see the rebels destroy the base, because then it's not on them, it's on the rebels. Syria has not destroyed, Israel's not destroyed the Russian bases, neither has America. Without the axis of evil that Iran had, Hamas is dead, Hezbollah is dead. After what happened in Syria, Hezbollah is double dead. They can't get any more weapons out of Syria. They can't get any, their weapon factories are gone. They're finished, okay? So the only thing left of the axis of evil in Syria is gone. Is the Iranians have the Houthis, which eventually the countries of the world are going to get around to getting them to cut this out with the Red Sea or destroy the place. Iraq, who's sitting there waiting for orders from Iran and scared, and Iran. So they don't have much of their axis of evil anymore. Without Hamas and without Hezbollah, it was bad, really bad. But without Syria, they don't have an axis of evil. So what could they do? They could draw troops from Yemen, the Houthis. There would have to be a way to strategically move them into position somehow. I don't know exactly how they would move them into position. There would be options. They can't just start sending ships and move them up to the part of Syria on the Mediterranean, because there would be, nobody would let them come in. They would blockade them, and if they pushed it, they'd sink the ships. They could do land crossing, but I believe they have to go through Saudi Arabia. That wouldn't happen. So how the heck did they do it? I don't know. They could find ways to maybe route into the Persian Gulf and come into Iraq. I don't know. But they could easily draw, 50 or 100,000 soldiers out of the Hezbollah if they find a way to transport them. Then they got the Iraq regular army, plus the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, plus however many Hezbollah and other terrorists ran out of Syria into Iraq, including the Syrian army, who could be incorporated into the Iraqi army. Iran's got a very large military. They could easily cough up 100, 150,000 soldiers, not a problem. Move them into Iraq. And then with Iraq, they could easily exceed 200,000. And if they could get Hezbollah and the Houthis involved, they could get up to 250,000. Iran's got tanks, Iraq's got some, the Houthis don't have much, and how are they going to move tanks? But, if Russia joins in, you see, now Russia could do this. I believe confidently Russia could free up easily 24 warships. They have a huge navy. They don't need that much navy to fight in Ukraine. They could send 24 ships into the Mediterranean. Okay? Under the guise of taking their air base back. Well, the story on that's going to be you made your treaty with the Bashar Assad Syria, which doesn't exist anymore, so you have no rights to the land. That's Putin's problem right there. The warships can shoot missiles at targets from the Mediterranean with some accuracy. Putin has aircraft. I'm sure he could spare, 50 or 75 planes that he could put in Iran. Bombers, fighter jets, AWAC type jets, intelligence gathering jets, maybe even 100. Put all that, maybe he's desperate, he'll put 150 planes in there. You don't need that many. Put a bunch of planes in there, a bunch of helicopters, a bunch of tanks in Iran. He could probably cough up 100 tanks. Iran could cough up probably 200-300 tanks. And Iraq could probably cough up 100. So they could create a large amount of tanks. Putin could give them a good amount of air cover. Now you got a winner. You don't need a navy because you're inland. And you got air cover from Russia, which is adequate. And you got a ton of weapons from Russia would help with more weapons. They just have to keep BRICS alive. Iraq has weapons, Iran has weapons, the Houthis got something. I don't know exactly what. They got tanks and stuff. If they could get the Houthi forces up there, which is rather dubious, they could do an invasion of Syria with air cover. Without air cover, things are very hard. And thus they could topple the rebels and take back Syria. So this explains why there was such a massive effort to destroy all the weapons in Syria and all the bases and the planes and the tanks and everything else. Because they don't want any Russian or Iranian or Iraqi or Houthis coming in and moving into those bases and setting up shop more effectively. There's no place for them to operate out of now. They don't have any radar. But Russia can bring ships in with radar. That would help some. And their planes would help a lot. So if Russia decides to bear down with Iran and just Iraq, let's assume for a moment the Houthis can't do much except if Putin gives them more anti-ship missiles, they could try to control the flow of ships in the Red Sea, perhaps, but that's about it. They start taking back Syria. They have to go in and start taking it city by city. Which would result in tremendous anarchy in Syria. Turkey would be ticked off because he doesn't know where he stands with his buffer zone. He'd be against it. America would be against it because they want the oil fields. Israel would be against it because they want that big buffer zone to move Palestinians into and keep everybody away from their borders in the north. The UK probably want to get in on it to some extent. The Kurds wouldn't want them. A lot of the more peaceful Sunnis wouldn't want them in there. So you'd have a real mess on your hands in Syria. A real mess. It's safe to assume Hezbollah and Hamas are not going to help them, and the Syrian army's not going to help them. And Russia's far away for this. So it's a question of Russia wants to take a chance. Now, Russia might be thinking, let this go till Trump comes in, and then I could negotiate with Trump. If he could end the Ukrainian war and not have a war with NATO, he could easily go in and take Syria back. It would be child's play. It would cost him a fortune. Moving troops, helicopters, jets, tanks, armored personnel carrier, artillery, setting up radar, communications, bases, medical, all this stuff, but he could do it. It would be child's play for Russia to take back Syria. So they divide Syria up before Russia, Iran, and Iraq, and maybe the Houthis have an opportunity to do anything about it. Now what does Russia do? Start a war with Turkey, start a war with America, start a war with Israel, start killing the Kurds, start killing the Alawites, start killing the Druze because they want their own piece of Syria. See the mess? America and NATO and Europe do not want to see the axis of evil emerge again in the Middle East because of the oil and BRICS and crushing the economy of the euro and the US dollar by having the BRICS members trade oil and gas plus food and other things not using the US dollar, using the BRICS payment system, and this will kill their economies and they know it. So they are going to have to stop it because without Iran and the Middle East, and they're not going to get the oil moving through BRICS other than what Russia has. And if Russia loses their NATO base on their Navy base on the Mediterranean and their air base to back it up, they're in dire straits in a war with NATO. So they could continue to bear down on Russia, and maybe Russia would go for a peace deal. But they don't really want a peace deal. They want the end of BRICS. And they're very scared what Trump's going to do when he gets in office with this 100% tariffs on countries supporting BRICS to wreck the US dollar. It's very, very, very confusing what's going on here. Okay, so the dividing up of Syria is sort of a very effective stopgap to stop Russia and Iran from reconquering Syria. Chief is outside. He's working out there in the yard right now. I'm checking the live stream. I'll have Chief on here another day, but I got him outside right now. Why do you want us to study the donkey? Did I put something up about the donkey? The donkey's a very interesting beast. That's why they kind of sing when you come to see them. They get very bonded to you. They kill predators, but I don't want to digress and get into that right now. Thank you for the compliment, CNN Travel. So, what I see now is a very rapid division of Lebanon, Syria. Very rapid. It's already happening. And I don't know how big the peace Israel's going to take is going to be, but I have a feeling it's going to be sufficient to move the Palestinians out of Gaza. At least a major amount of them. And then they just create a Palestinian area and they fence it up, and you live here and the Israelis move back here. And if Hamas doesn't surrender, de-weaponize and everything, Israel will just, Trump will probably say, just blow them up, you know. The chances of them reaching a real peace deal, ceasefire with Israel before Trump are, you know, very minimalistic. And if they don't give the hostages back in a real way, Trump didn't say give the hostages back in exchange for 5,000 terrorists in Israeli jails, you know. Trump said all hell will break loose, and that means basically you get the Palestinians out of there, and then it takes, probably wouldn't take more than 500 or 600 bombs, and the Hamas would be nothing. I'll be right back. There wouldn't be anything left. If they want to become martyrs, they'd be martyrs. What did Patton say? Don't die for your country, help your enemy die for his. I'm on the air. So this thing is a very fluid moving thing. We don't know entirely what's going to happen. What's Russia and Iran really going to do? They got to worry about American warships and planes and troops in the Middle East along with Israel. And there's UK planes, and the UK has a base in Syria also that they're not going to want to give up. So the UK will be in this. And Putin has to start thinking, well, if he gets sucked into a war in the Middle East, this could be a trap for him. And then while he starts deflecting his assets, his military assets to the Middle East, NATO drops on Ukraine, moves a couple 100,000 troops into Ukraine and shoves Russia out. And that would be a happy end to the war for Europe, I suppose. Russia's pushed back only from Ukraine. Ukraine would probably give up that piece of Russia they took, and the war's over. That's not going to happen, but that's what they might think. So Russia has to be very careful. The key to this whole thing is this: will China and North Korea help Iran and Russia to save BRICS? If this doesn't happen, BRICS is dead. Okay? Russia will be picked off. Russia is being picked off. It's going badly for Russia. And Trump is going to crush BRICS with 100% sanctions, or try to. If that doesn't work, Trump will try something else. This is the BRICS war. Israel has been used and is a puppet of the United States and has been for many years. That's why in prophecy you read the yoke of the strangers that the strangers have comes off our neck. All right. Now, if this goes a certain way, which it likely will, it's going to lead to the destruction of the daughter of Babylon and Iran and Iraq, and Syria's already kaput. Gaza's already kaput, and Lebanon, no, but South Lebanon is a junkyard. So more will probably happen in Lebanon. Turkey could get dragged into this. Don't know what's going to happen. Egypt ain't going to come help Iran, or Egypt's not into this. India will do nothing. India just blows around in the wind and tries to be everybody's friend and make money. Maybe India will, I don't know. If Iran goes to India, I'll sell you, so many million barrels of oil a month for $40 a barrel. India might pay attention and say, gee, that's a good offer. I don't know. But going to war is extremely expensive, so I doubt it. I don't know, but it looks like America and the axis of evil, and probably China and North Korea. Now, what could China and North Korea do? Number one, they could provide all kinds of military equipment and weapons to Iran and Russia, and North Korea too. Drones, missiles, maybe artillery, massive amount of stuff. Okay? North Korea has no problem bringing troops. He could come up with a bunch of troops for Russia to help him invade Syria. He could cough up 50 or 100,000 soldiers if he wants to. China could, I don't know what China would do. I really don't know. Could China bring warships into the area and soldiers and planes and get involved? It might happen. I don't see it at all right now, but it could happen. China isn't going to make it economically. China is pitted against, China and Russia and Iran and North Korea and other countries are pitted against America with the sanctions. BRICS is a sanction on America and Europe. If they can't make BRICS work, they're going to have to submit to Trump. And they know it, or their economies will collapse. And Trump is going to extract a dear price from them. Trump is going to play hardball. And they know it. And Trump is not far away. January 20th, December. 6.5 weeks or something like that, 7 weeks. Trump verbally said, just let the pieces fall where they may in Syria. Don't worry about it. Stay out of it. Well, that's not what he's going to really do. That's what he's saying to make Biden look bad, but he ain't going to Then on the other hand, he turns around and says Hamas is going to have all hell to pay if they don't return the hostages. You know, what do you think if he talks like that to Hamas and the hostages? What do you think he's going to do with Yemen attacking shipping and American Navy vessels in the Red Sea area? What do you think he's going to do about that? You think he's going to put sanctions on them, or he's going to tell them he's going to bomb them into oblivion if they don't stop? I think he's going to tell them to bomb them into oblivion. Do you think he'll go through with it? Why not? What can Yemen do to America? Nothing. 2-3 aircraft carriers show up at a safe distance, and 3-4 weeks later, Yemen's in oblivion. That's that. And you need the axis of evil dismantled to do that safely. Russia has no defense treaties with Yemen. So China has a high probability of laying back and not getting too actively involved in this because they got their hands full over in the Asia Pacific region with South Korea, North Korea, and Japan in there, and Taiwan in there, and the Philippines in there, and Guam in there, and American warships all over the place, and it's a mess. They assembled 90 warships around Taiwan last night or in the last 24 hours, the most they ever had before. Maybe they intend to help Russia and Iran by attacking Taiwan. The war wouldn't be in China homeland, and America would be very afraid to getting into a big war in the Middle East if they had to handle a fight over Taiwan, and then North Korea attacks South Korea, and America's committed over there, and then Russia could gain ground in Ukraine maybe, and they could try to recover Syria. The only way Russia, North Korea, China, and Iran are going to come out ahead over NATO and America is if they all attack at the same time. And then comes the sleeper agents in America. Can they launch them? Will they launch them? They're probably afraid to launch them because they know America is going to go nuts if they do, and they don't know how it's going to go. War is a dangerous game because you never know what's going to happen. So this could be the trigger for the daughter of Babylon getting destroyed, America. And it could be the very beginning stages of pulling the trigger back. It could be. The fact that Israel's already conquered land in Syria makes me think we're closer to the year of redemption. We're in the year of recompenses. Obviously, you can see that's correct. Look around you. Syria going down, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon. You're seeing it, but it's not. This year of recompense is not over yet. You're going to see a lot more. You ain't seen nothing yet. Elam's going to be a mess, and they're going to have to all leave the country. That's basically Iran, and it could be a little piece of Iraq, and some people say it pertains to Syria. There's a lot of discrepancy about what it is, but it's definitely Iran, and that's going to be a rumor seed, and other countries too. So it really looks, very exciting. God didn't let Israel grab any land. Now this is different. Well, we did sort of maybe almost create a buffer zone in South Lebanon, but not really. Temporarily, our troops are there. Nobody's living there. Is anybody living, Israelis moving into Syria yet? No, so it's not really a reclaiming the land, but it also is because our troops are occupying it. So it is and it isn't. It's a buffer zone. It's kind of a gray area, but it makes me think we're closer to redemption. But it actually isn't us getting our land back. Remember, King David ruled out of Damascus. Now, will Netanyahu take Damascus to show that the Syrian rebels don't have control of the country? He could. I don't know. I don't think he will, but he could. I'm not expecting it, but he could. I don't know. But I think the rebels are a disposable asset now, and they're going to carve the land up. And they might leave the rebels with some parts of Syria. So this is really could be Jeremiah 30:11, where God says he'll destroy all the nations he scattered Israel into. I think it's leading to that. And I think it's leading to the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, Isaiah 47 and Jeremiah 50 and 51. I think it's going there. America's really getting a lot of the evil people, you know, the axis of evil in China and North Korea and Russia and Iran, and now Iraq and Yemen, and you know, they're all getting very, very mad. So that's what I got. That's my analysis. It's a very fluid, fast-moving thing. I will be updating on my Telegram. My email is israelgiving with the digit 7 at gmail.com. Israelgiving7 at gmail.com. If you want my Telegram, send me an email and I'll send you an invite link. You need to download the app Telegram Messenger to use it, as far as I know. I will do emergency live streams if things get weird and hairy. Other than that, I will be updating on Telegram probably another 6 or 7 times till tonight. So I'll keep picking up pieces of information. I go off social media. A lot of it comes from the Arabs. And I live here in Israel, you know, so I'll get stuff and put it up and we'll track the progress of what's going on. And but it's real. The tanks are there. There's pictures of tanks in Lebanon now. They're there. And I'll keep you updated. So please pray for me and my wife. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, joy, and healing. Pray for our finances. That needs prayer. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. Let me see if I have some prayer requests from people that sent in. I got so obsessed with the war, I don't know. Yes, we have a prayer request for who I'll call AZ, Alpha Zebra, AZ, Alpha Zebra, AZ. Pray for housing. This person is a believer without a house now. So pray for AZ to get housing for self and for rescue animals. Housing for AZ and rescue animals. Prayer request for DR, David Robert, DR, David Robert. Pray for physical health, finances, and to walk in the gifts of the Spirit. So for DR, David Robert, pray for physical healing, financial help, and to walk in the gifts of the Spirit. Okay? And I'll keep you updated. This is very fluid every hour. And I will keep you updated on Telegram. And if things get highly unusual and irregular and exciting, I'll do emergency live streams on YouTube. But as we're getting closer and closer to the year of redemption, you can see things are really moving very fast, very fluid, and a lot of twists and turns that we can't predict. And this too will probably have twists and turns that we may not see coming till they show up. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out. Wow, I got this done in 108 minutes. That's less than 2 hours. I'm getting there. Okay, kids, thanks.